that 53,000 crores have been taken away from our country by 15 people alone. What do you think is one of the biggest mistakes, any home buyer makes when he's taking a home loan?
So which is where I always ask people to do a diligence at their own instance, not rely on institutional assessment. The concept is buyer beware. The concept is not lender beware.
If you are a co-borrower in a loan, how do you safeguard yourself against those kind of pitfalls?
And if you're not certain, then be cautious.
A lot of buildings go into redevelopment, right? So you get into an agreement with the builder, you give some floors to them, you keep some floors to yourself. But oftentimes one has seen things go south.
That market is a very high-end market. And if you have the ability to get into that zone and have that purchasing power of that bracket, it is always advisable that go with the best out there.
A lot of countries in the Western world, especially, you have to study to become a realtor, right? You need certification, you need licenses. India is the most disorganized market. Anybody can get up any day and say, "Aaj mere ko property bechna shuru karna hai."
And population is such
Yes.
that the requirement for housing will always be there.
It'll always be there. Is it just builder reputation that we have to rely on in that scenario?
So, you see, having been in this sector for such a long time,
Yeah.
the best of the names in the market
Yeah.
have gone south, and
I think what happens is they launch so many projects,
That's
one
right.
after the other, dhar kare ja rahe, and that's when they also get stuck in that vicious circle.
yeah, there were so many cases where they took money from the home buyers and just siphoned it somewhere else.
Correct? Have you ever wondered what really happens after you sign a home loan? Who is responsible if your personal data is misused? Or how money laundering, something that sounds distant and dramatic, actually affects your daily life, the cost of homes, and even the safety of our financial system. These are not just legal questions, these are human questions. To help us unpack these questions today, I am joined by Anindya Banerjee, a senior corporate lawyer with over 2 decades of experience across banking, mortgages, real estate, financial crime, and regulatory law. He has served as a national legal head for retail lending at HDFC, one of India's largest housing finance institutions, and is today a partner at Capital Law Chambers, advising on complex issues around loans, property transactions, data privacy, and money laundering. In this conversation, we move beyond the legal jargon to understand the human impact of these laws. How to protect yourself in taking a home loan, what most buyers get wrong in real estate deals, why data privacy matters more than we realize, and how financial crimes quietly shape our daily lives. Hi, Anindya. Thank you very much for coming to the Growth Room with Nishtha. I think the questions and the conversations we're going to have today are so important to so many people in our country. And I want to begin by asking you've spent 2 decades in HDFC, where you've looked at loans, mortgages, etc., under a very, very fine lens. I want to start by asking you, what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes any home buyer makes when he's taking a home loan?
Okay, at the outset, first of all, thank you for having me over, and it's
My pleasure.
It's nice that we start with the mistake, but nonetheless, we'll take it with that. See, typically, if I have to be very candid with you, when a common man is buying a property, the biggest mistake, unfortunately, that they do is they rely on someone else's assessment. The assessment, and I really ask all who I meet that you have an independent assessment for your own good, for your own purposes. It may cost, say, about 1, 2, 3% of the total amount that you're spending. And real estate, for most of us, most of Indians, is a one-time thing. It's not every time happening.
Right.
Largely for the population, housing is still a basic need.
Yes.
So which is where I always ask people to do a diligence at their own instance, not rely on institutional assessment. See, when an institution is assessing, of course, the infrastructure is very different, and the purpose with which they are, approaching that diligence is very different. At the end of the day, an institution like any other, one operating in the BFSI sector, is interested in the sense of security,
Right.
and whether they'll be able to invoke the mortgage, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, the money is going to come from the individual,
Right.
which is the basic parameter around all lending, right? it is not governed by the value of the underlying security. It's governed by the repayment capacity of the individual.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
That's a very fundamental thing.
Yeah.
So the approach to security assessment and the approach to title assessment for acquisition and enjoying a property fundamentally are different.
But this is a very interesting take, because what one has seen, because one is in the real estate business, what one notices is, even if someone has the paying capacity for a certain property, they will say that, look, I'm thinking of taking a loan because property verify ho jayegi. What you're saying is something totally different. What you're saying is you're asking people to break away from that mindset and do your own due diligence.
Absolutely.
And make sure that whatever it is that you're trying to buy has a clean title, has no defects,
Absolutely.
no gaps, no nothing.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, the concept is buyer beware. The concept is not lender beware.
But there are times when things go to court. There are disputes, right? And there are documentation gaps, so there are legal defects. And mortgage enforceability also becomes questionable in disputes in such scenarios. What about situations like those?
Again, the thing is that what you are comparing are two separate scenarios.
Okay.
A lender's ability to recover money will have multiple things in his armory.
Okay.
The mortgage is not enforced. I will have a suit, simple suit. It will take time, but I am a lender with deep pockets.
Right.
Let it take its time. It doesn't matter. I'll get the money in due course. But in case the title is bad for the individual, that recourse is not available. That's a singular piece that the person has.
Right.
For the lender, at the end of the day, there is public money at stake. So even if I go to a court that, I'm enforcing the security as is, where is, what is there is.
Right.
For whatever be the worth, I'll take a haircut. I'm happy to, keep my books in place. I get my principal back. I'm fine maybe taking a haircut on the interest. But an individual can't really function like that.
Right.
The perspective is very different. And which is why I always keep telling people that don't get, enamored by the set of lawyers who are suddenly doing a title search in a jiffy for you.
Right.
You need to, look a little deeper, scratch the surface a little bit more. God forbid something goes wrong. Thankfully, titles are much better today. But God forbid something actually goes wrong. That diligence, the concept of buyer beware, that as a reasonable, independent individual, I have done my checks and balances.
Right.
And then I'm enforcing my rights to a property. Now, something gone wrong, something which is hanky-panky, something has not been disclosed. If I am, advising an individual, I'm very certain I'm able to, protect that person.
Very interesting. Very interesting. But tell me that, so if I take a loan from a financial institution today for the purpose of buying a property, is there something that most people tend to overlook in the document that they sign with the bank or the agreement that they sign with the bank that they should kind of, be more careful about?
All right. You're really taking me to very interesting territory. But see, I hear you. As individuals and you're dealing with big institutions, so you really don't have much to say in the standard documentation. You come in, you and I go, we just sign off, and not much that one can do.
Yes.
But thankfully, there's been a lot of regulatory intervention in this. So the regulator has come up with concepts of key fact statements, MITCs, that even if you're not able to go through the entire jargon,
right,
which is there in a booklet form or whatever,
yes,
is being signed.
It's a thick booklet.
It's a thick booklet,
and it's overwhelming.
It's not easy because it's not given to you in advance.
Absolutely.
Even if it is, you may not be able to, really go through it properly enough. And even if you wish to flag something out, it's tricky. It's not easy for an institution to suddenly change it for one person, right?
Correct.
I understand that part of the story, but for the individual, it's very critical that, they at least go through the charges. They should know what exactly is finally going to come out of their pocket.
Yeah.
If they are taking a loan, hope everything goes normal and people are paying in time and in due. But these things really come into effect when?
Yeah.
When what was agreed
goes south.
Goes south.
Yes.
And that intent has gone haywire or something, whatever.
Correct.
It could be genuine reasons, it could be artificial, but something has gone wrong. That is where as they say, devil is in the details. So the devil comes into play.
Yeah.
So which is why I think individuals must go through all those charges. What are the things that they're entitled to? And God forbid something goes wrong. What is exactly the penalty? It should not be over recovery either. Thankfully, because the Indian regulator is also so strong, so these things are highly regulated. These aspects are very, very focused regulations towards individual protection, general public protection. But nonetheless, it's always good to know what are you getting
What you're
into.
getting into.
And thankfully, the mandate is that to keep these things simple. They are just a simple sheet in which various charges are mentioned.
Right.
But other than that, if you have to ask me about what is there in the main document, it's quite a lot.
It's quite a lot.
And it's not very easy to consume.
And is it friendly to the person who's taking the loan, or is it friendly to the institution?
So see, it is an equitable document.
Okay, very interesting.
To such extent that both parties stand on what they've agreed upon. The moment any party budges, that's when the thing comes into play.
Understood.
And please understand, at the end of the day, why there's a large perception that institutions are of a particular kind and time. That's not the case. Because institution at the end of the day is doling out what money? You and my,
Yes.
right? We are putting in deposits.
Absolutely.
It's our parents' lifetime savings
Yes.
which are being parked into the same deposits.
Yes.
It's that money which is coming out as a loan.
Yes.
And an institution is living its life on the margins that it's earning, right? And these institutions also need to be for the larger economy.
Correct.
So you really can't have a narrative where an institution is absolutely deprived of its lawful claims.
Fair enough. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It has to work both ways.
It has to,
work
which
for
is why I
both
call it
parties.
equitable. It seems inequitable.
Very well put.
But I
It's not.
believe it's always equitable. Because see, the institution is given the money, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And it's a one-way
money is
transaction.
gone. Actually,
Money has gone out.
Money is gone.
Well,
Yeah.
the money has to come back.
Yes. 100%.
There needs to be some safety nets.
Very interesting. Now, something else happens usually when people are taking loans. So they are co-borrowers, right? So I could be taking a home loan and my husband could be a co-borrower. My sister could be a co-borrower. My mother could be a co-borrower. Now, human relationships, they're dynamics. Things go south. You sometimes sever relations, but you're still tied up in that loan with each other. My question is, if you are a co-borrower in a loan, how do you safeguard yourself against those kind of pitfalls?
So, interesting question again. And, again, it has two sides to it.
Yeah.
One, of course, is the institutional story, which I just discussed
Right.
with you. The other side is that if I'm signing off something, good, bad, ugly, I need to stand by it.
Correct.
Because, see, that is not basis relation.
Yes.
That is a commercial contract. It is deprived of any emotional quotient. It is absolutely simple that there are people identified to pay a particular
Yes.
sum of money.
Yes.
Things go south, disputes happen, people walk away, liabilities fastened unto one. Thankfully, the courts also understand that. More often than not, you would see these in matrimonial disputes, that when a property has been bought
Absolutely.
in joint names and
Yes.
the asset has to be protected and preserved for various reasons. So the asset goes one way, the liability typically also goes that way. So there are various such situations.
Safeguards and
But yeah, one has to be very mindful of what you've signed up for.
what you sign
You
up.
really can't have a situation where suddenly later point in time, because you see, these are long-term commitments. These are not short-term loans. Unlike a personal loan or a credit card or anything like a car loan, which are very short-term.
Yes.
A mortgage
It'll be 20 years, 15
is
years.
a long-term
Yes.
thing. In fact, at some point in time, we had a 35-year-old product,
Yes.
a 35-year tenor product,
Yes.
so that the immediate outgo is less. But these are like commitments of a lifetime. And if you're not certain, then be cautious.
And explain, this is a very layperson question that I want to ask you. That so typically, say for example, in South Delhi, everybody owns a certain percentage of there's a land share.
Yeah.
Is there a loan share also, or are you all equally liable to pay the whole
The
thing?
whole thing.
The whole
If you've signed up, and believe me, while we understand that by being a co-borrower,
Yes.
there's a sense of hierarchy.
Correct. There's a first owner,
Yeah,
second
the
owner, third owner.
That's
Yes.
not the case.
Ah,
You're all
see?
at par, and you're at par for the entire value.
Very interesting.
Because that's the concept of joint and several liability.
Yeah.
So when you're reading the loan agreement, you'll find it
Ah,
there.
yes. Understood.
That the liability, even if all are not available, I can go back to one individual, ask that person to pay for the entire loan because they have signed up for it.
Right. Oh, you can.
Yeah.
You can. Okay. Okay. Now we are in a very different market today. We're in a very different real estate market, right? A lot happens in terms of marketing gimmicks, so on and so forth. Now let's just sort of, because I do sizable business in South Delhi, let's begin with that. A lot of buildings go into redevelopment, right? So you get into an agreement with the builder, you give some floors to them, you keep some floors to yourself, or whatever it is that happens. But oftentimes one has seen things go south, right? So maybe the builder does not build, does not construct. Now, again, what do you do when a situation like this arises? You may have a watertight agreement on the table where you'll say, oh, these are the penalties if you don't build in this much time, or you have these, you've stacked it up in a way where, after this much time, this much needs to be completed, so on and so forth. But what do you do when a situation arises where everything has been signed, your agreement is watertight, yet, there is no construction happening?
So see, because the agreement is watertight, it will have consequences. But unfortunately, those need to be enforced by the due process of law.
And there's time,
And
but
no, I understand there is
yes,
time, but you'll have to take it to a court of law.
right.
Don't try anything else, because you see, the capacities of the two parties are very different, and especially the market that you're talking of.
Yes.
The individual buying the product and the kind of money that he's putting on table, he or she is putting on table, as against the gentleman or the person or the enterprise undertaking the construction. They come from different universes,
Right.
literally.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And without alluding too much to it,
Yeah.
but the fact is that that balance of equities may not necessarily be there. So it is advisable that do it not, because you see that market is a very high-end market. And if you have the ability to get into that zone and have that purchasing power of that bracket, it is always advisable that go with the best out there.
Go with the best, and maybe coming back to what you always say, that do that due diligence.
You do the diligence, that's all right. But again, diligence is on paper. If something is going wrong on the construction, and because there's a holding cost to that money also.
Of course.
And if it's taking time and from the normal gestation period, then you are losing money.
Right.
Consider that up front, pay that premium, and deal with a better developer than anyone who has suddenly come up in this market.
Understood.
Life is easy. You buy your piece, basically.
Right. And does that, again, so I think this will also hold true from a buyer who's buying, say, a floor on booking. Like, this is a concept today, right?
Sure.
So the whole thing has yet to be raised down.
Absolutely.
Somebody's bought a plot.
Yes.
And they've sold the floors in
Already,
that building.
yeah.
That has happened. So they will tell you, okay, this much land share is yours.
Yes.
Aapka itna percent ho gaya, and you pay us
Yeah.
for the registry, etc., etc. But nothing is there. There's nothing on ground.
right.
You're actually buying a floor.
Yeah,
So
to be constructed.
yes, to be constructed. Now, and you're hoping that it'll happen in 2 years, but sometimes it doesn't. It takes 3 years. Sometimes it takes more. Again, in a situation like this, is it just builder reputation that we have to rely on in that scenario?
So, you see, having been in this sector for such a long time,
Yeah.
the best of the names in the market
Yeah.
have gone south, and south like how?
Yes.
Right. There are good players
Yeah.
who have sustained. There are smaller players in different pockets who have sustained. But the biggest and the best of names that we would not even think twice
Right.
and cut a check, those names have gone under.
100%.
Now, it is the same risk, but at a larger scale when you're looking at big projects,
Yeah.
say across NCR, MMR,
Yeah.
Bangalore. And the same risk is also for a smaller project in a South Delhi scenario.
Correct.
Now, something is not constructed, you really can't do much about it. If it goes down, it goes down. You have to live with that risk, which is why it is always better that you buy something which is already constructed. That risk is out. If you are going for something which is under construction, again, stick to somebody who is a reputed.
Correct.
In the recent past. What is the current trend? This is not a legal discussion.
Yeah,
believe me.
no, I know.
This is more about having a very mature way to
Yes.
approach this subject, where you know that you're not likely to get held up. Should something go wrong, at least there are people. I have seen people have genuinely, had problems. And some of these good developers, they've shifted a good clientele of theirs
To another property. Yes.
in an
Happens all the
amicable
time.
manner,
Yes.
in a very amicable manner.
Yeah.
They're good developers in
Yes.
the market also, and they're very conscious of how they
Are perceived.
and how, because at the end of the day, somebody is also entrusting their own property to the same set of
Yes,
people.
that's correct.
It's a small universe here. It's a very small world. And in that sense, they are also very mindful of their way of conduct.
Understood.
So I see serious players. I also see players who are not very serious, which is where the problem typically comes in. What from the buyer perspective is that a property which is under construction is a tad bit cheaper.
Yeah.
So
It
It
is
is exactly the delta of that value
absolutely.
that by the time the property is constructed, the value would have gone up.
Yeah.
Now, if you're staying, it doesn't matter. But if you're really like, going to churn it around, then that's the delta that you're working around.
Delta, and also it kind of gives you that flexibility of payment, right? Like you don't have to pay
Obviously,
everything upfront.
obviously,
So you
obviously.
have that
That's important.
construction linked
That's
plan.
right. That's
So
right.
you feel that I don't have to. So if I buy something that's ready to move today,
Correct.
then I have to put the whole
Everything
money on the table.
On table.
But when I'm buying something under construction, I have the flexibility. Chalo over do
Correct.
saal, I have to pay that money.
Yeah, whatever.
So
If not 2 years, typically South Delhi would be a little shorter than that.
shorter, yes.
But that's
Yeah.
the thing. That's a trade-off at the end of the day. That's a trade-off. And if you're putting in that kind of money, again going back to the first point, because see, the risk of non-construction is exactly what Supreme Court is, dealing with so many matters.
Correct.
And unfortunately, there the pockets of the individuals are not as deep.
Yes.
They are like people who are like you and I who have taken one unit in some project and the best of the names and they've not happened.
Correct.
But the risk is the same of non-construction. It is just the size which is very different. So if you are able to, fit yourself in that bracket, try to minimize your risks.
How buyer-centric or buyer-protective is the law? And I'm saying this from the perspective of the larger projects that sort of get launched across all markets. And let's just take, for example, the Delhi NCR market.
Sure.
So many builders have gone into NCLT and the big names,
Absolutely.
Now, how protective is the law of the buyer? See, because like you're saying that people like us will probably buy 1 or 2 properties in our lifetime and we'll put all our parents' savings, our savings, everything there. And then when something goes south like this, where you already parked a sizable amount of money, chalo, aajkal to bade sare different kinds of plans and 30, 70, whatever. But oftentimes you've already paid a lion's share of what you need to pay to the builder in advance, right? What happens then? Like there's so many homeowners who've been left in the lurch, and I see that it's gone into NCLT, insolvency, IPs have gotten appointed, but the resolution is still not happened. What happens in a scenario like this? Like is the law really, is the system in the country working hard to bring in buyer protection in a big way?
So see, the system is working. The RERA has come in.
Yes.
It's a very positive development. I think it will take some more time to actually show its strength. It's still not as functional as it possibly should be.
Right.
They have also come up with a lot of good orders at the end of the day. So, as far as our courts are concerned, they are very, very conscious about this issue.
Okay.
And in each and every order that you see, especially with the biggest of names, they've been extremely mindful that the common man must get his or her
Their due
property.
share. Yeah.
Or if they want a refund, there's a visibility.
There is.
The roadmap, unfortunately, is very long drawn.
It's long.
And that is where you feel very bad. Why? Because as you said, in the lifetime of a common person, you'll have 1 or 2.
Yes.
And if you're 1, which basically means that your present accommodation is rented.
Correct.
So which means that you're paying rent as
And
well as also paying an EMI.
Yes.
Because
with no
no visibility,
no light at the end of the tunnel
so
that
while
you can see.
The legal protection is there, and thankfully the courts, especially the Supreme Court, has been very loud and clear that there are certain things that they're just not going to allow. They have intervened beyond the scope of law, beyond the ambit to protect the home buyers' interests in multiple cases. It's just that a judge of the Supreme Court can't be expected to go and
Correct.
monitor that. So it is going to be long drawn, it's going to take time, but thankfully the courts have been so conscious in monitoring. Some of these cases are heard month on month. Every month there's one hearing that happens.
Wow.
So you realize that the seriousness with which the courts are approaching this issue is phenomenal. And I think the other side is that the builders also understand that the old age is over.
Correct.
That you can take
that's a big one
for granted.
No, that's a big one, because I think what happens is they launch so many projects,
That's
one
right.
after the other, dhar kare ja rahe, and that's when they also get stuck in that vicious circle.
Yeah, and
right.
Not only that, sorry, I'm interjecting.
No, fair enough.
But there were so many cases where they took money from the home buyers and just siphoned it somewhere else.
Correct.
Money went out of the country. I mean,
yes,
there are so many cases I've seen personally, and it's so unfortunate.
Yes,
it is so unfortunate. It is not fair.
Correct.
And I think that is where the court is intervening so nicely. They're getting in, NBCC. There was so much stuff that they've done.
Yes.
That project-wise now you're talking of insolvency and all. So much intervention has happened. I'm very certain that The support system is there,
Hmm.
but it's just that the timeline
Time.
is something which
Well,
is
let's
something you
hope.
can't.
Let's hope that
Yeah,
gets
yeah.
reduced
I
also.
sincerely hope so as well.
I hope
Yeah,
that happens.
yeah.
Okay, now one of the biggest roles that is played in any transaction in real estate is really the role of the broker, right? And I'm one myself, and we are very, very clear that we are out there to create value. But unfortunately, now if you go abroad in a lot of countries in the Western world, especially, you have to study to become a realtor, right? You need certifications, you need licenses. India is the most disorganized market. Anybody can get up any day and say, "Aaj mere ko property bechna shuru karna hai," right? Without having the wherewithal, the knowledge, the insights. My question is, why has the legal system or the machinery never thought of reining that aspect in, or making sure that some kind of hygiene is brought in to the broking business, as it were? We have so much compliance and diligence that's done when we talk of broking in other areas, such as insurance for that matter,
So true,
right?
so true.
Why not in real estate where the stakes are so high?
So you're right, but the law is there. The RERA talks of real estate agents being registered under
Hmm.
the law. The law is there. The implementation has not been as much.
Right.
So, which is always unfortunately the gap. You deal with that gap in due course of time. Our country is also, moving forward. We are really creating a lot of interest globally as well. So I'm very certain this is an irritant which will also get addressed sooner than
Hope
later.
so. Yeah.
The law is there.
The law is there.
The implementation is the
It's
issue.
sketchy.
And again, while these people, especially in case of larger projects, the risk is a little different. But in these smaller pockets, especially like say the area in which you're dealing, the stakes are so
Yeah.
high. Uh, this community is also very empowered.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that these shackles will also break.
Hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
It ought to. It
that's
ought
when one
to.
will be able to differentiate the good from the
Good from the
bad,
bad,
the good
absolutely.
from the
That will
bad.
happen.
Yeah.
The registration, I think, yeah, a little far, but gradually we'll have all of this falling in place.
Excellent.
And I think ours would be a model to showcase, because you see, our population is such that
Yes.
the requirement for housing will always be there.
It'll always be there.
And which is why you will also have institutional money inside it, and which is again why I feel gradually the entire environment would be very protective towards the home buyer.
That's
But it's going to evolve.
that's the end goal,
It'll take
really.
some time,
Right.
but there's a lot of good work that's been happening. I mean, I know a lot, but it takes time. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of good work.
So and I'm going to state from one of the transactions that
Please.
we were in recently. So the sellers, we were representing the sellers. We represented the sellers later, but they'd met with somebody before us, and he got a buyer. They discussed the number, they discussed the contract, but nothing got signed. No money was paid. Nothing exchanged hands, and then they signed with us, for another buyer. But the previous buyer then sued them, sent them a legal notice to say that, oh, you have to do it through me. There was nothing. No, I'll tell you the point I'm trying to get at. The point is that the nuisance value of something like this is tremendous. It can throw any clean deal also off kilter. Now, why is it that the ambiguity of the law, or just pure access to the law, is so easy that anybody can twist it, turn it, and make life difficult even for a cleaner this thing?
No, okay. But I think you meant the broker. The last broker made
No, the buyer.
the buyer.
Yeah.
But he had not bought. He had not put
They had done
anything on
nothing.
table.
Had done nothing. But he still sent them a notice to say, I'm gonna buy it.
Ah.
You have to sell it to me.
Uh-huh.
There's nothing. You've not discussed anything. You've not stuck to any timelines. There was nothing signed. No money exchanged hands. But now you're trying to sue them, and you're saying, I can file a petition.
Yeah.
If you sign a petition, then the new buyer gets worried.
So what happens typically is that you're creating a nuisance value.
Exactly.
While I'm very certain no court is going to entertain this
Yes.
at any level. And thankfully, the courts are very mindful when they come to intervention.
Yeah.
What are the things where they come and give stay orders and all? The courts are very clear. Not all are allowed. And I'm very certain this kind of a scenario, you'll really not get any protection from any court. But having said that, that's a separate story. In the real world, what's happening, the subsequent buyer is automatically prejudiced.
Yes.
Thinks that there is an underlying dispute.
Exactly.
And I am better off not getting involved.
And so that guy has won his battle,
That's
right?
right. So it's a pure nuisance thing,
Yeah.
and hopefully these things should
Hopefully,
also.
hopefully there will be deterrents to even filing a petition
Yeah.
unnecessarily, in the
No,
future.
I'm very certain these petitions will not get entertained. They have a cost
Yeah, yeah.
to them. So while the nuisance is by virtue of a notice that is served, but it is actually the perception which gets created for
Absolutely.
any subsequent.
Exactly.
They have the sense that it can get jeopardized, and generally these are
Yeah.
very heavy transactions, very expensive transactions.
Yes.
And it's not worth their while. I mean, I wouldn't advise anyone, as simple as that.
Correct.
Because it's not in the interest of my client
Yes.
to go and get into and resolve things. There are people who do that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But what happens is that there's a hit on the valuation, and that's when it's not.
Okay, now
good
that
fun
we're
anymore.
talking about valuation, I have a question around valuation. So anytime somebody is going to buy a property, a valuation happens, especially when you're taking a home loan. Somebody will go and try and evaluate what is the value of the property. Of course, there is your ability or your ability to get a certain amount of money as loan and your ability to pay that loan, but there's also the value of the property
That's
that
right.
plays a role. My question is, so there's a value of the property basis what an evaluator is thinking the property should be valued at. Then there is the last sale price. Then there are some other nuances, Anindya, like, oh, this is a, now aajkal to vastu ka bada kuch hai,
Yeah.
so this is a vastu compliant property, so I'm going to charge a premium. This is a 3-side open, so I'm going to charge a
Yeah.
premium. Now, two properties in the same lane could differ by crores and crores
Yeah.
of rupees. My question is, will there ever be a time when we'll have a gold standard for valuation that will hold true for all scenarios? Is it possible? Or will the human fickle element, idiosyncrasy, always play the part that it does today?
That delta will always remain.
It'll always
And
remain.
for a variety of reasons. You're talking of the same lane. I'll tell you, if you go down in India to Kerala, and so the same building, the riverfront and the front, the roadside, the two units on the same floor, the delta will be humongous.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Wow.
this happens. This happens pretty often. But that aside, these are still elements that can be factored. There are also elements like two families. I mean, sorry, the same family needs more space, and you're getting a unit in the same building.
Right.
They'll pay a premium, and it'll be beyond any standard.
Yeah, because the need is being exploited.
The need is getting, and that'll be a delta beyond vastu.
Yeah, I know.
Beyond parking, etc.
Correct.
It's just the convenience, and you are buying a convenience. It's as simple as that, or it's as complicated as that.
Okay.
So to have a standard around these parameters is always going to be very tough.
Tough.
But yeah, thankfully, you have registered valuers. You have some method to the madness. There is regulation around it. It is not all and sundry who can do valuation. So is the case for institutions.
Correct.
So when they need to get valuers, they have to have a particular standing and credibility before they can, get impaneled as valuers. And thankfully, you see some rational. But again, valuation is about what is perceived,
Yes.
right? There is nothing beyond it.
Correct.
It is perception. I call this cup 100 rupees, you call it 20 rupees.
Correct.
And it might very well sell at 20 rupees. That's the thing. COVID happened.
Yeah.
What happened to the valuations?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there was no concept.
Absolutely.
There was no yardstick. But that's the concept, and that's the reality, and that's global. It's not that it was only impacting us.
So is the circle rate the yardstick?
The circle rate is like the floor that we are sitting on,
Wow.
and the ceiling is what we agree on.
Okay, that's so beautifully put. The circle rate is the floor. तो उससे नीचे नहीं दे सकते,
उससे
उसके
नीचे
ऊपर
मत
कोई
करना।
सीमा नहीं है.
ऐसा नहीं है, नीचे नहीं कर सकते. It is basically the rate at which you'll be assessed
Yes.
for stamp duty and all the state revenue purposes. You and I can still agree
Yeah.
for maybe a rational that, while the circle rate is X, I may do it at X minus Y, but largely it's X plus Y.
Correct. And does this become even more difficult because we do know that at least in and around Delhi, there's a lot of leasehold properties. LBZ is full of leasehold properties, right?
Yeah.
What happens in those scenarios? Like, so there's freehold, there's leasehold, and the leasehold properties are cheaper. Now, what does that get governed by the price? Again, is it the human element, or will the circle rate play a role there? Because उसमें registry तो होनी नहीं है.
Yeah, I just hope, that authority kind of gets a little, into action
Yeah.
and replicates what DD has been doing,
Right.
allowing conversions, allowing unit
Absolutely.
sales, giving properties on conveyance.
LNDO must do it.
I didn't want to say that, but yeah, LNDO must move.
Yes.
It's the authority for the most prime property,
Right.
uh, and it's not worth your while in just getting title which is of no good. It's just agreements coupled with some attorneys and
Right.
an ancient transaction which even the Supreme Court has frowned upon way back in Suraj Lamps, but that's a separate story altogether. But I think it's high time for us to unlock that potential. These authorities need to be told that please get your house in order, uh, or unless you want to, continue with the leasehold model, fair enough, but enable transfers in a legal manner.
Exactly.
The transfer charge of 33% of unearned increase or 50% of
Yes.
unearned increase. I mean,
Yeah.
I've unfortunately dealt with all of that, and it just eats into the cost of the
Correct.
unit.
Yes.
Now, instead, if the entire machinery reviews the system, allows transaction, at the end of the day, they will also be earning some revenue out of it,
Of course.
rather than a bunch of people hoodwinking the entire system
Yes.
and creating all kind of funny structures of
Yeah.
paperwork and documentation. At the end of the day, which is not enforceable, just not worth the while of anyone. And you have international banks coming in, taking the same areas on lease.
Correct.
Right? You see the area that we were discussing.
Yes.
Is it really? Is that the picture that we are wanting to paint
Yes.
and
Project.
project ourselves?
Yes.
That you have to be in this area of risk and with uncertainty on title. You do not know who's the claimant, and anyone can come up and say that this is mine, basis the understanding of one individual
Absolutely.
who's running the show in the building.
Absolutely.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's absolutely
ridiculous.
not on. And
You said something very interesting about individuals hoodwinking the system, and from there I kind of want to bring us to a very interesting part of the conversation, which is money laundering. Okay. And I want to discuss this because what happens is we typically read about these things in the newspaper. So many thousands of crores have gone out, have been laundered, etc., etc. Now I want to understand, Anindya, is it that we don't have enough checks and balances? Is it that the contracts are not watertight when these things happen? Or is it just pure human hoodwinking or greed, or the human element or the connivance of the human element that allows these things to unfold?
See, unfortunately, the numbers when we talk of money laundering, and especially some of the cases that we have seen in the recent past, the numbers are mind-boggling,
They're mind boggling.
and they really don't make any human sense, so to say.
So, I want to just quickly mention a research I was reading recently that 53,000 crores have been taken away from our country by 15 people alone. Okay. So, when you are saying obscene numbers, the numbers are truly obscene.
Absolutely, and it's very unfair because you see somebody would have been deprived, but let's keep that aside for a time to have a very dispassionate discussion about it, and to see and assess and appreciate the law. The law is there.
Okay.
The law has been amended from time to time. Earlier, you had to play the system to showcase something as clean property while it came from a tainted source.
Right.
That was the offense. Today, the law is no longer the same, but the human element, the greed, and the flight of fancy, so to say,
On both sides.
on
The lender as well as the receiver.
So you see, when the money is being lent, now you've had some names which were again top notch, like the examples which we were talking on real estate.
Yes.
You had the best of names. I mean, but unfortunately, you really did not see the system through. Now, I was involved in I was involved actually in a couple of these matters, but in one matter, I saw the distinction play out. You see, my institution was a very conservative institution, was a very mindful institution, very thoughtful.
Very good.
Very good, but I'll tell you the story. So what happened? We did very safe lending.
Right.
We did it against real estate because that was the only thing we understood.
That was your collateral.
That was my collateral.
Correct.
And there was another institution, a very reputed institution, which did it against something which was very flimsy.
Acha.
which comes back to valuation.
Correct.
The valuation is an item of perception.
100%.
So that institution did it basis some valuation matrix, and overnight it ceased to exist. So I had
Oh.
to actually prove and stand up in a court and say that, listen, I have done some very mindful lending. It's not that I've done anything in the collusion.
Oh.
And you have done something of this kind and type. How am I responsible?
Right?
Yeah.
And so in a scenario like this, would you recover first?
Thankfully, I did recover.
Brilliant.
And yes, slow and steady wins the race.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So those old adverbs, they hold good. Those adages. Yeah.
But again, I'm EQ is very close to my heart, right? I constantly talk about emotional quotient really being something that's that'll outdo any technical knowledge, any intelligence, anything. I want to ask most of these borrowers, and now when we're talking about numbers like 53,000 crores
Yeah, yeah.
and crazy numbers running into billions, these guys, some of them are extremely reputed. They're also extremely rich, as it were.
Yes.
Is it just pure human greed that makes them do things like this, Anindya? Because at the end of the day, you suddenly have to just like pack your bags and leave overnight because you've gotten yourself into such a mess. What is really happening? Is it lack of EQ? Is it just greed that pushes people into such territories?
I think it's a combination of both, and a very sad combination which takes things this way. I remember in one case there was this whole group of employees who just didn't know what to do.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, forget everything else. Yes, there are rich people who have the wherewithal to flee the country, and then there are these people who are working for these people for like ages, and
they
they
get
are
trapped.
not able to run their homes.
Oh my God.
And it's very painful. It's very, very painful when you see. So that's the classic balance of EQ. Uh, Unfortunately, maybe because the size of the country, the population is so much, we're all trying to outdo each other, trying to make that position, get there, and it's that unfortunately in the system.
Yeah.
And these people at times take undue advantage of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's sad.
It's unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate. It's really beyond legal realms, so to say, because on paper you have a lot of rights, but when these kind of situations happen, more than any other thing, you really don't know the extent of damage to that individual's family,
Correct.
the children, the spouse, the parents. You really don't
So
know where
selfish,
does
this
it
whole,
go and hit.
So, one of the first times that we met, you said something very interesting to me, which was that while you were at a national bank, everybody comes for home loans, but it's the guys who are working at the lower positions or the blue collared workers. Everybody wants to make a home, and you really went out of your way to sort of help them. It is believed that lawyers have very, very sound technical skills, but when it comes to emotional quotient, it's not very high. What do you think about that? Do you think that your EQ has actually played a big role? And I can sense that you're a person with very high EQ in helping you even during crisis management more versus if you were someone who didn't have it.
So I wouldn't say all lawyers, but yeah, maybe few. But I think the technical expertise is like a given.
Right.
Right. I mean, let's not even go there. But I very firmly believe that it is never a one-man show. You are only as good as your team and your compatriots are.
How wonderful.
You can achieve much more. The concept of synergy is only basis the concept of EQ.
Wow.
If you do not take people along, you will be left behind. You may be the brightest, you may be the best, but if you do not take people along, you're not moving an inch.
Such sound advice. Such golden words. And I want to ask you now for the next generation of corporate lawyers, in a day and age of AI, आप कुछ भी बना सकते हो AI पे. There are so many platforms that are available. What is going to hold a lawyer in good stead? Will it continue to be technical skills and pedantic knowledge, or will it be really their ability to navigate their own emotions of the client, so on and so forth? So will it be EQ, or what combination of skills do the next generation of corporate lawyers need to create a niche for themselves?
Most important, See, again, I'm assuming that the technical skill set is already there.
There.
Yeah, we are talking thereafter.
Hmm.
How do you own your client?
Yeah.
Why do you even call the client a client? Why can't you put yourself in his or her shoes?
Right.
And then see what is the best piece of advice that you can come up with. At the end of the day, yes, the client does the gives you the direction, but it is that holding that journey together that does someone feel alienated, or are you taking someone along with
Along.
you? Are you able to walk with them,
Or ahead of them,
or
or yeah.
ahead or
Yes.
behind them?
How lovely.
I think that is what's going to distinguish,
Correct.
uh, and that is what is also going to give them the value.
Hmm.
There are lawyers, and there's some who are really making very and doing very well for themselves, and there are the other kinds also.
Yes.
I think that distinction will come from the value add that you bring in.
It's very interesting that you say this. Sometimes you are representing an interest of a client that may not purely be in sync with your value system. Now, how do you detach yourself in scenarios like those?
So interesting. You see, I am bound
Right.
to look at the best interest of my client.
Yes.
It is not me, right?
Correct.
So while I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I am duty bound to protect the interests of my client.
Absolutely.
But then it is up to me, the type and kind of clients that I pick and choose.
Sure.
This universe is also a very small universe. As we talked about you in South Delhi, believe me, the legal universe is also a very small universe. And if you pick up a kind and type of clientele, believe me, it's the same type that is going
Keep
to come
coming
your
back.
way. You're going to attract
You
the
keep
same.
a track. Oh, wow. Yes.
So if you
How
know where to
amazing.
draw that line, and you know that there are certain things that are non-negotiable for you, that story will also go around.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
So it's really up to you.
This is great. This is great. And I now want to just quickly touch upon one aspect that we're just beginning to warm up to as a country, as it were, which is data privacy. In our country, I've worked with so many American organizations. GDPR was like so big, right? And we'd have to do tutorials on GDPR actually as part of our training. Even in the biggest organizations, in the biggest of positions, we would do a GDPR training, and we're just as a country warming up. In India में क्या होता है? आप किसी restaurant में जाते हो, I go to my favorite restaurant, they'll say, अच्छा, what is your name, your mobile number, and they will take it at
Date
the
of birth.
entrance. उसके बाद वो आपको एक फीडबैक फॉर्म देंगे जिसमें तो सब कुछ एनिवर्सरी बर्थडे
Yeah,
बच्चे कितने हैं क्या है. I have now started saying no, or I've started giving wrong numbers. But what's really happening, from what I understand of data protection, data is equal to sharing of data has to be treated synonymously with consent. What has happened in our country so far, and where are we headed?
So thankfully we have a new law, we have a
Yes.
new set of rules, and thankfully it is not that some regulator as a passing reference is also giving some regulation on data protection and privacy. It is a fundamental right, thanks to the Supreme Court, and it has its
Wow.
own law, it has its own regulation. And unlike, say, GDPR, where you require tutorials,
Yes.
and even I had to study it because I had a presence in UK. I also had some presence in Singapore, and my clientele was in California,
Yeah.
because Indians were buying properties
Right.
back in India. So I had to look at the CCPA also. But all that aside, our law is beautiful, believe me, and I really believe this. Why? It is simple. It is easy for a common man to understand. It talks of data principle. It doesn't say data subject. In that very phrase, I see the intent coming out, that the principal thing about this law is principally about that individual.
Wow.
And we call a data fiduciary. That means there's an entrustment,
Correct.
which means that you are supposed to be conducting yourselves in a very mindful manner, taking care of that data principle. So while, like erasure,
Purging. What
purging,
happens? Yes.
like while there's a right of the data principle to seek for purging, there's also in the law which mandates the fiduciaries that after the purpose has been done with, you have to purge the data, which was not the case earlier. Data would just remain for the longest.
But data is being sought at every nook and
I,
corner,
I I
Anindo,
understand.
at every hospital, at every
Yes,
restaurant.
yes,
I mean, I'm just trying to understand who's telling the restaurant, okay, once you've taken this detail for this particular booking, you purge it.
that's right.
When will the penetration occur?
That's right. I'm very certain that the regulation gives you 18 months time to have your act in place.
Wow.
And most of at least the reputed institutions will be extremely mindful
That's very
that
interesting.
they have their act in place, because thankfully the fines are also sizable. 250 crores, 200 crores.
Yeah.
It is not a small number.
Acha.
And I'm very, very certain, because we've been so mindful, we've taken our time.
Yes.
We have done multiple iterations of the regulations before we've come to this. And thankfully, it is simple. Like, we do not have a sense of hierarchy in the nature and quality of data. A data is a data point, and it is secure.
Correct.
You don't have to have two types of data, that this type of data will need different protection.
So it's
Institutions which are categorized into two levels: smaller
Understood.
institutions and larger institutions dealing with multiple data sets, etc., etc. But largely, I feel our law is very simple, and I think with equal ease we will be able to implement it as well. Thankfully, I see a lot of conversation along the larger institutions who are very mindful, who do not see it as a cost or a money thing where you'll have to put in good money, but they see that at the end of the day, the trust element, which is why I say fiduciary,
Yeah.
the trust element is going to get their clientele.
And I think what is also needed is, and we've discussed this once earlier, that a lot has to do with human error also. I'm
Obviously.
just saying you also have to be cognizant about what you're sharing, when and how,
That
and
consent.
in how much detail.
So
Yes.
when I am giving consent,
Yes.
I also have that duty,
Correct.
that what is the extent of consent that I'm giving.
Absolutely.
And if the law has enabled me to withdraw it, then I should exercise that right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm very certain that these things will play out.
Hmm.
There will be, yes, some time, there'll be some aberrations, there'll be some irritants also.
Right.
But this will play out very smoothly. And I think that narrative of India being very conscious about
Yes.
data
Hmm.
is going to come out very organically, very cleanly. And I often quote the examples how we deal with data, say while you and I are walking into an airport and we are dealing with the Digi Yatra, Digi
Yes.
Locker, do a journey. Data goes, data is processed, data is
Purged.
you're inside.
Wow.
Smooth journey. Similarly, what we have achieved with the UPI, I think it's unbelievable for the size of the country that we are, the kind of data, the kind of transactions, real-time transactions.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling.
So if we have achieved that data flow with that level of protection, I think this is a much
easy.
lower hanging fruit. I'm very optimistic about this.
What an optimistic conversation this has been. So enriching. I've thoroughly enjoyed. And I think we've covered so much ground across so many domains. Thank you so very much, Anindya. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. I think I go back a very, very enriched human being. Thank you for making time to come to the growth room. I look forward to more such conversations with you in the future.
Thank you so much. Equally enjoyed it. Wonderful talking to you. So glad that we could do this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.